When I found my disabled mom literally chained to our porch by the HOA president, I thought we were dealing with a simple neighborhood bully. But the FBI agents who burst into the next HOA meeting revealed something far more sinister. Why had they been watching us all along? The chains rattled against metal as I dropped my grocery bags, eggs smashing on our driveway. Mom. My voice cracked seeing her bound to our porch railing, her wheelchair pushed out of reach. The morning air bit at my skin, but nothing compared to the ice in my veins when I saw Karen Mitchell standing there, bolt cutters dangling from her perfectly manicured fingers. Your mother violated Code 47B, Karen announced, adjusting her designer sunglasses with her free hand. Disabled residents cannot be unattended on front porches for more than 15 minutes. Mom's arthritis-twisted hands trembled against the cold metal links. Amy, I was just getting fresh air, she whispered, her voice breaking. I've been inside all week. I rushed forward, fumbling with the chain lock. This is assault. You can't chain a disabled woman to her own house. My fingers shook with rage as I worked to free her. Karen's smile turned sharp. The HOA board gave me full enforcement authority. Read your contract. Contract? I spat. What contract says you can physically restrain people? The one your mother signed when she moved here. Karen pulled out her phone, scrolling casually. Section 12, Paragraph 4. The HOA reserves the right to take necessary measures to ensure compliance with community standards. Mom's eyes filled with tears. I never agreed to this. I finally got the chains off and helped Mom back into her wheelchair. Her wrists bore angry red marks where the metal had dug in. I'm calling the police. Go ahead, Karen shrugged. Officer Davidson is my brother-in-law. Besides, I have documentation of every violation. As I wheeled Mom inside, I noticed something strange, a black sedan parked across the street, engine running. The windows were too dark to see inside, but I felt watched. Once inside, I wrapped Mom in her favorite blanket and made her tea. Her hands still shook as she lifted the cup. Amy, I'm sorry you had to see that. Sorry? Mom, you're the victim here. I grabbed my phone to document her injuries. This is beyond HOA overreach. This is criminal. They've been escalating for weeks, Mom admitted quietly. First, it was complaints about my service dogs barking, even though Max only barks when I need help. Then they said my wheelchair ramp wasn't the approved shade of beige. Why didn't you tell me? She looked away. You work so hard already. I didn't want to be more of a burden. Mom, stop. I knelt beside her chair. You're not a burden. You're my mother. And nobody, especially not some power-hungry HOA president, gets to treat you like this. I spent the afternoon calling lawyers, but none would take our case. HOAs have broad authority, they all said. Fighting them is expensive and usually futile. By evening, I was researching online when an email popped up. Notice of additional violations. Karen had fined us $5,000 for wheelchair track damage on our lawn, plus $500 for unauthorized restraint removal. This is insane, I muttered, scrolling through our HOA documents. That's when I found it, buried in subsection after subsection, language that seemed deliberately vague about enforcement measures. Mom wheeled into my office. There's that car again, she said, nodding toward the window. The black sedan hadn't moved. As I watched, the driver's window lowered slightly. I caught a glimpse of what looked like a camera lens before it rolled back up. Mom, how long has that car been watching our house? She thought for a moment. About 2 weeks. Right after I filed that complaint about Karen using HOA funds for her personal landscaping. My skin prickled. You filed a complaint? I found discrepancies in the financial reports at the last meeting. Karen's been billing the HOA for work done at her own house. Suddenly, the chains made sense. This wasn't about porch violations, it was about silencing Mom. The next morning, I found our garbage cans moved to block Mom's wheelchair ramp. A note was taped to one. Bins must be stored out of sight. $200 fine for noncompliance. As I moved them, our neighbor Mrs. Rodriguez hurried over. I saw who did it, she whispered. Karen's son, around 3 a.m. I have security footage. Why are you whispering? She glanced around nervously. Because Karen has eyes everywhere. She got the Patels evicted last month for hanging prayer flags. Said they were unapproved exterior decorations. That's discrimination. Shoo. Mrs. Rodriguez pressed something into my hand, a USB drive. There's more on here. Be careful. Back inside, I plugged in the drive. Dozens of videos showed Karen and her cronies harassing residents, moving trash bins, photographing homes at odd hours, even tampering with mailboxes. Mom, look at this. We watched video after video, building a timeline of harassment. A pattern emerged. Every target had either questioned Karen's authority or had some form of disability. That evening, another email arrived. Emergency HOA meeting. Disciplinary action required. The subject line made my stomach drop. Resident Margaret Thompson. Multiple violations. They're coming after you again, I said. Mom straightened in her chair. Let them try. I didn't survive 3 tours in Afghanistan to be bullied by a suburban tyrant. At the meeting, Karen had prepared a slideshow of Mom's violations: grass blade height variations, unapproved bird feeder, excessive use of handicap parking. Each slide drew murmurs from the crowd. Mrs. Thompson has accumulated over $10,000 in fines, Karen announced. We must consider foreclosure proceedings. I stood up. This is harassment, plain and simple. Sit down, Miss Thompson. You're not a homeowner. You have no voice here. But I do, said a man in the back. Other voices joined in. Residents' mom had helped over the years. Karen's face reddened as support grew. Order. She banged her gavel. The board will vote on foreclosure. As the board prepared to vote, the meeting room doors opened. A man in a dark suit walked in, scanning the room. His eyes locked on Karen, then on us. Don't stop on my account, he said, taking a seat in the back. Karen faltered. Who are you? Just a concerned citizen. He pulled out a notebook. The board voted, but 2 members surprisingly sided with us. Karen's perfect control was cracking. After the meeting, the suited man approached us. Mrs. Thompson? Interesting presentation tonight. Do I know you? Mom asked. He handed her a business card. It was blank except for a phone number. If things escalate further, call this number. He walked away before we could ask questions. In the parking lot, we found our car keyed, deep scratches spelling leave. The black sedan was gone, but somehow, I felt less alone. That night, going through the USB files again, I found something that made my blood run cold: property records showing Karen's husband's company had purchased 6 homes in our neighborhood, all previously owned by disabled residents. I looked at Mom, sleeping peacefully with Max curled at her feet. Tomorrow, I'd start connecting dots. Tonight, I'd plan our counterattack. The war for Silverbrook Estates had truly begun. Rain pelted our windows as I spread documents across the dining table. 3 days after the meeting, Mom's fines had doubled. Now they claimed her service dog's breathing was disturbing the peace, and her handicap ramp violated architectural harmony standards. They can't be serious, Mom said, reviewing the latest notice. Max has a medical certification. They're not trying to be serious, Mom. They're trying to bury us in paperwork and fees until we give up. The doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw my best friend Sarah, soaked from the rain, holding a stack of folders. You won't believe what I found, she said, rushing inside. As a paralegal, Sarah had access to public records most people never thought to check. She spread papers on our table, overlapping with my own research. Every single house the Mitchells acquired had the same pattern: disabled resident, escalating HOA fines, forced sale, then flipped for triple the price. That's definitely illegal, I said, if we can prove intent. But look at this. She pulled out a highlighted document. Karen's maiden name? Harrison. As in Harrison Development Corp., the company buying all these properties. Mom leaned forward. So it's a family business. A corrupt one, Sarah added. They've been doing this across 3 states. The power suddenly cut out, plunging us into darkness. Max growled, his first sound all day. Probably the storm, Mom said, but her voice wavered. I grabbed my phone for light and checked our security cameras. They were dead too. Through the window, I noticed every other house had power. This isn't the storm, I whispered. A knock at the back door made us all jump. I grabbed Mom's old baseball bat and crept toward it. Through the glass, I saw Mrs. Rodriguez holding a flashlight. They cut your power line, she said when I let her in. I saw them from my kitchen. Karen's son and 2 other men. Did you call the police? She shook her head. The police chief is Karen's cousin. But I recorded it. She handed me her phone. The video showed 3 figures in HOA jackets cutting our power line. Clear as day. This is evidence of criminal tampering, Sarah said. We need to. A crash from the living room cut her off. Someone had thrown a brick through our front window. Attached was a note. Final warning. Mom wheeled herself to the broken glass, fury replacing fear. Enough playing defense. The next morning, despite having no power, we launched our counterattack. Sarah filed complaints with the State Housing Authority while I contacted local news stations. You want a story about HOA corruption? I told the reporter. I've got evidence of systematic discrimination against disabled residents. Within hours, a news van parked outside. Karen appeared almost immediately, designer heels clicking on the sidewalk. This is private property, she told the crew. No filming without HOA approval. Public street, the reporter countered. First Amendment. As they argued, I provided the news team with our evidence, the USB videos, property records, and last night's power line footage. This is defamation. Karen screeched when she realized what was happening. I'll sue you into bankruptcy. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation, Sarah called out, earning a death glare. The segment aired that evening on a generator-powered TV. Karen looked unhinged, screaming about property values while we calmly presented evidence of discrimination. Our phones exploded with calls from other victims. The Jamaluddin family shared how Karen had called their Ramadan decorations terrorist symbols. Mr. Soto described being fined for using a cane without HOA approval. We need to organize, Mom declared. By midnight, we created a Facebook group, Silverbrook Survivors. Within hours, we had 50 members. Karen retaliated swiftly. The next morning, a locksmith was changing our locks. Foreclosure proceedings, he explained apologetically. HOA orders. They can't foreclose that fast. I protested. Emergency powers clause, Karen smirked from the sidewalk. Didn't read the fine print? Sarah was already on the phone with legal aid. They need a court order. This is a legal eviction. The locksmith hesitated. I don't want trouble. Then leave, Mom said firmly. Because trouble is exactly what you'll get if you continue. He packed up and left. Karen's face turned purple with rage. That afternoon, while documenting everything for our lawyer, I noticed the black sedan was back. This time, I approached it directly. Hey. I banged on the window. I know you're watching us. The window lowered slightly. A deep voice said, Step back, please. Who are you? Why are you watching my mother? For her protection, the voice replied. Check your mailbox. Confused, I walked to our mailbox. Inside was a manila envelope with no postage. It contained photos of Karen meeting with known criminals, bank statements showing large cash withdrawals, and a sticky note. We're building a case. Keep pushing. I looked back, but the sedan was gone. That evening, our Facebook group exploded with activity. Someone posted internal HOA emails showing Karen discussing Operation Clean Sweep, a plan to systematically remove undesirable elements from Silverbrook. This is it, Sarah said. This proves conspiracy. We organized a peaceful protest for the next day. Dozens of residents gathered with signs. HOA equals Harassment Organization Association and people over property values. Karen called the police, claiming we were trespassing on HOA common area. Officer Davidson arrived, Karen's brother-in-law. But to everyone's surprise, he looked uncomfortable. This is a legal assembly, he told Karen. I can't remove them without cause. I'm your family, she hissed. And I'm a sworn officer. The law comes first. As the protest continued, a news helicopter appeared overhead. Our story was going viral. That night, Mom received a call from the mysterious number on the blank business card. Mrs. Thompson? Tomorrow, 9 a.m., Federal Courthouse. Bring everything you have. Who is this? Someone who's been waiting for Karen Mitchell to make a mistake. She just made a big one. After the call, I found Mom staring at an old photo album. Amy, I need to tell you something, she said. Before I retired, I worked in military intelligence. I was investigating housing discrimination against veterans. My jaw dropped. You were investigating this kind of thing? Until my disability forced early retirement. But I never stopped watching. Karen targeting me? That wasn't random. Someone tipped her off about my background. So when they chained you to the porch, they were trying to intimidate me into silence. But they chose the wrong veteran to bully. As we prepared for the courthouse meeting, our phones buzzed with breaking news. FBI raids HOA president's home. The screen showed agents removing boxes from Karen's house while she screamed about constitutional rights. Mom smiled grimly. The chains that bound me just became the evidence that will imprison her. The war wasn't over, but the tide had finally turned in our favor. Your mother is a burden on this community. Those words were still ringing in my ears when the HOA meeting room doors exploded open. 5 men in dark suits stormed in, their FBI badges gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Everyone remained seated. The lead agent's voice boomed through the suddenly silent room. Karen's face turned ghost white as she dropped her papers, sending them fluttering to the floor like dead leaves. I watched, heart pounding, as the agent walked straight to Karen. Karen Mitchell, you're under arrest for federal housing discrimination. elder abuse, and racketeering. What? This is ridiculous. Karen shrieked, backing away until she hit the whiteboard. I'm the president of this HOA. You can't just. We can, and we are. The agent cut her off, producing handcuffs. You have the right to remain silent. My neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, grabbed my arm. Amy, did you know about this? I shook my head, just as confused as everyone else. But then I remembered the black sedan, the radio chatter I'd overheard. They'd been watching Karen, not us. You set me up. Karen screamed at me as they cuffed her. You and your crippled mother. The room gasped. Even Karen's most loyal supporters looked shocked at her words. Actually, the lead agent said, turning to face me, we've been investigating Mrs. Mitchell for 6 months. Your mother isn't her first victim, but thanks to your evidence, she'll be the last. My evidence? I'd only filed complaints with the city last week. As they led Karen out, still screaming about conspiracies, the agent approached me. Ms. Thompson? I'm Agent Rodriguez. We need to talk. The remaining HOA board members sat frozen, like deer in headlights. Rodriguez addressed them. This meeting is over. We'll be in touch with each of you. People scattered like roaches when the lights come on. Within minutes, only Sarah, Mom, and I remained with the FBI agents. How long have you known? I asked Rodriguez once we were alone. Long enough to know your mother was in danger, he replied. But we needed concrete evidence of physical abuse. When Mitchell chained your mother to that porch, she gave us exactly what we needed. Mom wheeled forward. You used me as bait? No, ma'am. We were protecting you. We had agents ready to intervene if things escalated beyond what happened. Sarah, ever the paralegal, jumped in. What about the other victims? The pattern of targeting disabled residents? Rodriguez nodded. We've documented 37 cases across 3 states. The Mitchells would infiltrate HOAs, systematically harass protected class residents, elderly, disabled, minorities, until they sold their homes cheap. Then they'd flip the properties for huge profits. But why my mom specifically? I pressed. Why chain her up? Rodriguez exchanged a look with his partner. That's complicated. Can we continue this conversation at your house? 20 minutes later, we sat in our living room as Rodriguez spread files across our coffee table. Photos of other victims, financial records, email chains, the scope was staggering. Mrs. Thompson, Rodriguez began, are you aware that Karen Mitchell's husband served in the same military unit as you? Mom's coffee cup clattered against its saucer. That's impossible. I'd remember. Not at the same time, Rodriguez clarified. He was discharged for misconduct 2 years after you retired. But he had access to personnel files. My stomach dropped. He knew Mom was military intelligence? We believe so. When the Mitchells moved to Silverbrook and saw your mother's name on the resident list, they panicked. They thought she might be investigating them. Mom laughed bitterly. I've been retired for 10 years. I just wanted to enjoy my garden. Their paranoia was your protection, Rodriguez explained. They were so focused on neutralizing you as a threat, they got sloppy. The physical restraint, the blatant discrimination, it all created a paper trail. Sarah was furiously taking notes. What about the other board members? Are they complicit? Some are. We're sorting through who knew what. Rodriguez pulled out another file. But here's what's interesting. 3 board members came to us last month, afraid of Karen but unsure how to stop her. Who? I demanded. I can't say yet. But they've been feeding us information. Mom rubbed her temples. So this whole time, while I thought my neighbors hated me, some were terrified of losing their homes if they defended you, Rodriguez finished. Karen Mitchell ruled through fear. The doorbell rang, making us all jump. Rodriguez's hand went to his hip, where I assumed he kept his gun, but relaxed when Sarah checked the peephole. It's Mrs. Peterson and a few others. Rodriguez nodded. Let them in. It's time the neighborhood knew the truth. What followed was surreal. Neighbors I thought supported Karen filed in, many in tears. Mrs. Peterson spoke first. Amy, your mother, we wanted to help, but Karen threatened to foreclose on our homes. She had dirt on everyone. Mr. Jameson, who'd complained about Mom's wheelchair ramp, hung his head. She said she'd report my son's visa status if I didn't file complaints. Story after story poured out. Karen had blackmailed, threatened, and manipulated the entire neighborhood. The fake violations against Mom were just the tip of the iceberg. Why didn't anyone call the police? I asked, frustration building. We did, Mrs. Peterson said. But Karen's brother-in-law is a sergeant. Complaints disappeared. Rodriguez nodded grimly. That's why the FBI got involved. Local corruption. Mom reached for my hand. Amy, honey, I knew something was wrong. That's why I insisted on sitting on the porch that day. You knew she'd escalate? I stared at her in disbelief. I knew she'd do something stupid if I pushed her buttons. I just didn't expect chains. Mom's military bearing returned. Sometimes you have to let the enemy overplay their hand. Rodriguez smiled. Your mother's instincts haven't dulled. She made our job easier. So what happens now? Sarah asked. Now we dismantle the entire operation. We have enough evidence to bring down not just the Mitchells, but their entire network. But we need your help. Our help? I echoed. Testifying. Providing documentation. And Rodriguez hesitated. We'd like to use your house as a command center. Karen's accomplices don't know they're compromised yet. Mom straightened in her wheelchair. You want to run a sting operation from my living room? If you're willing. I looked at Mom, thinking of all she'd endured. The humiliation, the pain, the isolation. Then I saw the fire in her eyes, the same fire that had carried her through 20 years of military service. They messed with the wrong family, Mom declared. When do we start? Rodriguez grinned. How about now? We've got surveillance equipment in the van. As agents began setting up cameras and computers in our spare room, transforming it into something from a spy movie, our doorbell rang again. This time, Rodriguez himself answered. A man in an expensive suit stood there, briefcase in hand. I'm Kenneth Mitchell's attorney, he announced. I have a message for Mrs. Thompson. Rodriguez stepped aside, letting him see the room full of FBI agents and equipment. The lawyer's composure cracked. Perhaps I should come back later, he stammered. No, Mom called out. Deliver your message. We're all friends here. The lawyer swallowed hard. Mr. Mitchell is prepared to offer a substantial settlement if you drop all charges and sign a non-disclosure agreement. The room fell silent. Then Mom laughed, a full, rich sound I hadn't heard in months. Tell Mr. Mitchell, she said sweetly, that he can take his settlement and shove it somewhere the sun doesn't shine. I'm just getting started. The lawyer scurried away like a rat from a sinking ship, and our house transformed into FBI headquarters before my eyes. Agents installed cameras, computers, and recording devices while Mom directed traffic from her wheelchair like a general commanding troops. Put that camera there, she ordered, pointing to a bookshelf. It'll catch anyone approaching the front door. Rodriguez watched with amusement. Mrs. Thompson, you're a natural at this. 20 years in military intelligence, Mom replied with a wink. You think this is my first rodeo? That's when the bombshell dropped. Rodriguez pulled me aside, his expression serious. Amy, there's something else you should know. Your mother wasn't just any intelligence officer. What do you mean? She specialized in domestic terrorism and organized crime. Before she retired, she was investigating housing discrimination patterns across the country. My jaw dropped. She never told me. She couldn't. Most of her work is still classified. Rodriguez glanced at Mom, who was showing an agent how to hide a microphone. We think she recognized something in Karen Mitchell's behavior that triggered her old instincts. That's why she kept detailed notes of every violation, I realized. She was building a case. Exactly. Your mother's been helping us without even knowing it. Sarah burst through the front door, laptop in hand. You guys need to see this. We gathered around as she pulled up social media. Karen's arrest video had gone viral. But that wasn't what caught my attention. Look at the comments, Sarah scrolled down. Dozens of people from other neighborhoods are sharing similar stories about the Mitchell's company. The scope was bigger than we'd imagined. Screenshots of threatening emails, photos of vandalized homes, testimony from families forced to sell, it was all there. This is perfect, Rodriguez said. Public pressure will make it harder for them to bury this. Mom rolled over. Speaking of pressure, when do we start the sting operation? Tonight. We've identified 3 HOA board members still working with Kenneth Mitchell. They think Karen's arrest was just about the chain incident. They don't know we have evidence of the whole scheme. What's the plan? I asked. Simple. We leak information that your mother has documents proving the conspiracy. Then we wait to see who comes looking for them. You're using Mom as bait again? No, Mom interjected firmly. I'm volunteering. These people terrorized our neighbors. They made Mrs. Peterson's husband die thinking he'd lose his home. They threatened to deport the Jameson boy. Someone has to stop them. That evening, we executed the plan. Sarah posted on the neighborhood Facebook group that Mom had found interesting documents while cleaning out her files. Within an hour, our security cameras caught someone sneaking around our backyard. That's Tom Reynolds, I whispered, watching the monitor. He's on the HOA board. Tom tried our back door, then moved to a window. What he didn't know was that agents were waiting inside our garage. FBI. Freeze. They caught him red-handed with lock picks and a flashlight. During questioning, he spilled everything: names, dates, bank accounts. The Mitchells had been paying board members to harass residents. But Tom revealed something else. Karen keeps the real records in a safety deposit box. Everything: the bribes, the threats, the forged documents. Where? Rodriguez demanded. First National Bank. Box 307. But only she can access it. Rodriguez made a call. 20 minutes later, he had news. Judge granted a warrant. We're getting that box first thing tomorrow. Mom yawned elaborately. Well, this old lady needs her rest. Crime fighting is exhausting at my age. After everyone left, I found Mom in the kitchen, staring out the window. You okay? I asked. I spent years fighting corruption in the shadows, she said softly. I thought retirement meant leaving all that behind. But evil doesn't retire, does it? Is that why you never told me about your real job? She turned her wheelchair to face me. I wanted you to have a normal life. Not one looking over your shoulder, suspicious of everyone. But you trained me anyway, didn't you? All those games we played growing up, teaching me to notice details, read people, think strategically. Mom smiled. Guilty as charged. A mother prepares her child for the world she knows. The next morning, Rodriguez called with updates. We got the safety deposit box. Karen documented everything, like she was proud of it. We found records going back 15 years, across 6 states. How many families? I asked. At least 200. Mostly elderly, disabled, or minorities. The Mitchells made millions. But there was more. Amy, we also found something personal. Karen had a file on your mother, military records, medical information, even surveillance photos. She was obsessed. Why? Your mother testified against her father 20 years ago. He ran a similar scheme targeting veterans. She didn't recognize the name Mitchell. Karen used her married name. The pieces clicked. This was revenge? Partly. But also fear. Karen knew if anyone could expose her, it was your mother. That afternoon, our neighborhood held an emergency meeting in the community center. Without Karen's intimidation, people spoke freely. The stories were heartbreaking. They convinced me my autism made me an unfit neighbor, one young man shared. Said my cultural decorations violated aesthetic standards, Mrs. Kim added. They tried to ban my guide dog, a blind resident revealed. Mom listened to each story, her notepad filling with names and dates. When everyone finished, she wheeled to the front of the room. I failed you all, she began, her voice strong but emotional. I saw the signs but thought I was being paranoid. My training should have. No. Mrs. Peterson interrupted. You were the only one brave enough to fight back. Murmurs of agreement filled the room. Then Mr. Jameson stood. I motioned to elect Mrs. Thompson as interim HOA president. The vote was unanimous. That evening, as we celebrated with neighbors who'd become friends, Rodriguez pulled me aside one last time. The Mitchells' lawyer contacted us. They want to make a deal, full confession in exchange for reduced sentences. Will you take it? No. We have enough evidence to bury them. Plus, your mother gave us something interesting. What? Turns out she kept copies of every classified report she ever filed. Legal ones she was allowed to keep, including a 10-year-old investigation into housing discrimination that mentions shell companies matching the Mitchells' pattern. I laughed. She knew all along? Not specifically, but she suspected. That's why she moved here after your father passed. She was hunting without realizing it. Looking at Mom surrounded by grateful neighbors, I saw her not as my disabled mother who needed protection, but as the warrior she'd always been, fighting injustice even from a wheelchair. Some people never really retire, Rodriguez observed. No, I agreed, watching Mom organize committees and delegate tasks. They just find new battlefields. As the sun set on Silverbrook Estates, children played freely in yards where fear once ruled. Neighbors helped each other without suspicion. And at the center of it all sat my mother, the woman they tried to chain down, now breaking chains for everyone else. Amy, turn on Channel 7 right now. Sarah's voice cracked through my phone as I scrubbed red paint off our garage door. The word traitors still bled through despite my efforts. I rushed inside where Mom sat comforting our service dog Max, who'd thrown up the poisoned meat we found in our yard. The TV flickered to life, showing Karen Mitchell on the courthouse steps, microphone in hand. These people want special treatment, Karen shouted to the gathered crowd. They hide behind their disabilities while destroying our property values and American way of life. My stomach dropped. Behind her stood at least 50 supporters waving signs, save our neighborhood, and no special rights. Mom gripped my hand. She's turning this into something bigger. Within an hour, protesters lined our street. Half supported us with signs reading "Justice for Veterans" and "End HOA Abuse." The other half chanted Karen's talking points about property values and special treatment. Our quiet neighborhood had become a battlefield. "We need to do something before this gets violent," I told Mom, watching through our window as arguments erupted between the groups. She nodded, already reaching for her wheelchair. "Help me outside." "Mom, no. It's too dangerous." "Honey, I face worse than angry neighbors." Her military steel showed in her eyes. "Sometimes you have to meet conflict head-on." As we reached our front door, Mrs. Peterson from next door appeared on our porch. "I'm coming with you," she declared, leaning on her walker. Karen threatened my family too. Then Mr. and Mrs. Jamaluddin joined us. "We stand together," Mr. Jamaluddin said firmly. More neighbors emerged from their homes, the Garcias with their autistic son, elderly Mr. Thompson with his oxygen tank, then Gwynn's whose daughter used a wheelchair. People Karen had targeted for years. Together, we moved toward the crowd. The shouting died down as they saw us approach. Mom positioned herself between the two groups. "Listen to me." Her commanding voice carried across the yard. "This isn't about sides. It's about how we treat each other as human beings." A man in his "Save Our Neighborhood" shirt stepped forward. "You people are ruining everything." "What's your name?" Mom asked calmly. "Tom Wilson." "Tom, do you know what I was doing when Karen chained me to my porch?" "I was enjoying the garden your daughter helped me plant last spring. Remember? She earned her Girl Scout badge teaching me about roses." Tom's face softened slightly. Mom continued, "I served 20 years protecting everyone's rights, including your right to disagree with me. But when did wanting to live with dignity become un-American?" Phones appeared, recording every word. Someone live-streamed to Facebook. "Look around," Mom gestured to our diverse group of neighbors. "We're not asking for special treatment. We're asking to be treated like humans." Mrs. Peterson spoke up. "Karen fined me $3,000 because my husband needed a wheelchair ramp after his stroke. Said it was an eyesore." The Jamaluddins shared how Karen called their Ramadan decorations foreign garbage. One by one, victims told their stories. The crowd's mood shifted. Some of Karen's supporters lowered their signs, looking uncomfortable. But the property values. Someone protested weakly. "My house value dropped 30% after my husband died." Mrs. Peterson replied. "Not because of his wheelchair ramp, but because good neighbors kept moving away, scared of Karen's fines and rules." That hit home. People started murmuring about their own HOA experiences. Tom Wilson was the first to switch sides. He pulled off his "Save Our Neighborhood" shirt and walked over to us. "I'm sorry," he said to Mom. "I didn't know." Others followed. Soon, most of Karen's supporters had joined our side. That night, our video went viral. #ChainVeteran and #HOA Justice trended nationally. News vans arrived by morning. Agent Rodriguez called. "This changes everything. We're getting calls from HOA victims across the country." The Mitchell investigation just expanded to 16 states. But our victory celebration was interrupted by breaking news. Karen had disappeared, along with $2 million from the HOA account. Her husband appeared on camera, sweating profusely. I had no idea what she was doing. She left this note saying she'd rather die than go to prison. The note's words chilled me. "This isn't over. They'll pay for destroying everything I built." Mom looked grim. "She's escalating. People this desperate do desperate things." At 3 a.m., we woke to Max barking frantically. Through the window, we saw flames. Someone had set fire to the community center where we'd stored all our evidence against Karen. As sirens wailed and neighbors gathered in pajamas, I realized this wasn't just about an HOA anymore. Karen had declared war. Fire trucks battled the blaze while I frantically called Agent Rodriguez. All our evidence was in there. The documents, recordings, everything. "Calm down," Rodriguez said. "We backed up everything to FBI servers yesterday. Karen doesn't know that. But the damage was done." Fear rippled through our community again. 2 families moved out that week, spooked by the arson. Then came the email blast to every resident. "You think you've won? Watch what happens next." Cam. Security cameras started malfunctioning. Pets went missing. Car tires were slashed. Karen was terrorizing us from the shadows. "We need to draw her out," Mom strategized during an emergency meeting in our living room. "She's unraveling. Desperate people make mistakes." Sarah had an idea. "What if we announced that we found more evidence? Something she doesn't know we backed up?" We crafted our trap carefully. I posted on social media, found Karen's secret second set of books hidden in Mom's old military footlocker. Turning them over to FBI tomorrow. Mom played along, making a big show of moving a locked footlocker to our garage. That night, we waited. Rodriguez had agents hidden throughout the neighborhood. At 2 a.m., a figure crept toward our garage. Floodlights blazed. FBI, don't move. But it wasn't Karen. It was her husband, David Mitchell. Please, he begged as they cuffed him. She made me do it. She's been watching everything through hidden cameras she installed months ago. The revelation sent chills through me. Karen had been surveilling the entire neighborhood. Where is she? Rodriguez demanded. Canada, David sobbed. She has a fake passport. But she's coming back. She said she has one more surprise planned. 3 days later, at Karen's sentencing hearing in absentia, we learned what that surprise was. She'd hired a lawyer to file a massive countersuit against every resident who'd spoken out, claiming defamation and conspiracy. The judge looked disgusted as he reviewed the filing. Mrs. Mitchell, wherever you are, let me be clear. You chained a disabled veteran to her home. You terrorized families. You embezzled funds. And now you're attempting to abuse the legal system. He turned to us. This lawsuit is dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, I'm issuing a bench warrant for Mrs. Mitchell's arrest and freezing all her assets. But the best part came next. Mrs. Amy's mother, the judge addressed Mom. Would you please approach the bench? Mom wheeled forward. Ma'am, I've reviewed your military service record. Your work investigating housing discrimination was exemplary. It seems fitting that you continue that mission. He smiled. I'm appointing you as special advisor to the court for all HOA-related cases in this district. The courtroom erupted in applause. 2 weeks later, Karen was caught trying to sneak back into the country. The Canadian Border Patrol recognized her from our viral video. At her real sentencing, she remained defiant. You're all sheep. I was protecting property values. The judge wasn't impressed. 15 years federal prison, plus restitution to every family you harmed. As marshals led her away, Karen locked eyes with Mom. You ruined everything. Mom responded quietly, No, Karen. You ruined yourself the moment you put chains on another human being. The aftermath brought profound change. Our neighborhood elected its first Democratic HOA board. Mom became president, implementing fair policies that protected everyone's rights. The FBI expanded their investigation nationwide, uncovering similar schemes in 200 communities. Mom testified before Congress, leading to new federal protections against HOA abuse. Our community healing process took months. We held potlucks, built wheelchair-accessible gardens, and created a neighborhood watch that actually watched out for each other, not just property values. 1 year later, at our first annual Unity Festival, Agent Rodriguez pulled me aside. Remember wondering why the FBI was watching? Your mom had contacted us months before the chaining incident. She suspected Karen's scheme and was gathering evidence. Mom overheard and winked. Military intelligence habits die hard. I laughed. So you knew all along? Not everything, she admitted, but enough to be prepared when Karen finally went too far. Today, Silverbrook Estates is known not for its property values, but for its values of inclusion and compassion. Mom's Legal Defense Fund has helped hundreds of HOA abuse victims nationwide. And Karen? She writes us letters from prison, still insisting she was right. We use them as examples in Mom's training sessions for new HOA boards, perfect illustrations of how power without empathy becomes tyranny. The chains meant to bind us instead forged an unbreakable community. Sometimes the darkest acts spark the brightest transformations.